Hello and welcome to Female Cricket Live. The 12th and the 13th match of the ICC Women's Cricket World Cup were played today. So the 12th match was played between Bangladesh and Pakistan, which Bangladesh went on to win by 9 runs, registering their first win in their debut Women's Cricket World Cup. Batting first, Bangladesh posted 234 for 7 in 50 overs thanks to Fargana Hoque's 71, Nigar Sultana's 46 and Sharmin Akhtar's 40 odd runs. For Pakistan, it was Nashra Sandhu who was the pick of the bowlers as she picked up 3 for 41 in her 10 overs. In reply, Pakistan could manage to score 225 for 9 in 50 overs as they fell short of just 9 runs in the end. Sidra Amin scored a wonderful century, which was, of course, the first century by any Pakistani women's cricketer in World Cup history. However, her century went in vain as Pakistan fell short of just 9 runs in the end as they were restricted to 225 for 9 by Bangladesh. For Bangladesh, it was the leg spinner Fahima Khatun who was the pick of the bowlers as she picked up 3 for 38 in her 8 overs spell. So after this match, we can see that Bangladesh have won 1 out of their 3 matches, while Pakistan have lost all their 4 matches in the World Cup campaign so far. Then moving on, we had the 13th match of the ICC Women's Cricket World Cup. It was played between England and South Africa. Just like the Pakistan-Bangladesh game, again this match went all the way down the wire till the very last over. So batting first, England posted 235 for 9 thanks to Tammy Bobon 62 and Amy Jones half century. For South Africa, it was their all-rounder Marizanne Kaap who picked up a 5-wicket haul, which was also her first 5-wicket haul in her ODI career. In reply, South Africa fought hard and chased down the target in 49.2 overs to win the match by 3 wickets. So for South Africa, it was Laura Wolford again who was the top run getter as she scored 77 runs off 101 balls. For England, it was Sophie Eccleston who was among the wickets. And can we have the scorecard, please? Sorry, since we had 2 matches. Okay, so it was Anya Shrubsole who was the pick of the bowlers as she picked up 2 for 34 in her 9 overs, and Sophie Eccleston and Nat Silver chipped in with 1 wicket. So after this match, we can see that South Africa have won all the 3 matches, while England have lost all the 3 matches in the World Cup campaign so far. Now, ahead of us, we have yet another exciting contest. It is between Australia and West Indies. And to talk more about that, I have with me Krisania Young, Dr. Anand Ramprasad, Urvi Shah, and Dhanush Lavanya. So, Krisania Young is a Caribbean cricket writer, cricket analyst, and chief editor at Mostly Cricket. Dr. Anand Ramprasad is a columnist at Trinidad Guardian and has a specialization in sociology of sport. Urvi Shah is a mental health facilitator and an avid cricket writer, and Dhanush Lavanya is a content writer at Female Cricket. So I welcome all of you to Female Cricket Live.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. So, Dr. Anand, West Indies have made a wonderful start to the World Cup campaign, winning 2 out of the 3 matches. Of course, they lost to India in their last outing by 155 runs. But we can see that they have had good campaigns so far. Now, ahead of us, they'll be taking on Australia, who have won all the 3 matches. So, what do you think will happen in the match tomorrow, and what do you think could be the areas that West Indies would have worked on going into the match ahead against Australia?
I think the game against India highlighted some of the major weaknesses. It's a game in which the team did not perform in all 3 departments, the batting, the bowling, as well as in fielding. And moving ahead to this game against Australia tomorrow, they need to be on their A game, given their record against Australia, where they have played 13 times and Australia has won on 12 occasions. The one occasion that West Indies won, which was in the sixes, group of 6 in the 2013 World Cup, was when West Indies batted first and made 164 and restricted Australia to 156. So looking ahead, I think what is required is that the team has to perform to the best of its ability in all 3 departments, and may need, if they win the toss, to go with what has worked so far for them, and that is to bat first and hope to put a score of over 250 given the strong batting lineup that Australia has, and give and back themselves to defend that with efficient bowling as well as efficient fielding.
Yeah. So, Christina, I would like to ask you on this one that after the loss against India, do you feel that West Indies will look to regroup themselves and like make certain changes, knowing that players had injury concerns and sickness concerns coming in the last game on the on field? So, what do you feel like? Will they bring any changes as they are moving on to play against Australia, who is the top team in the World Cup at the moment?
Well, I was listening to head coach Courtney Walsh, and he was saying that they will assess Deandra on the day of the game, but he also said that West Indies would need to be wise, knowing that they're after Australia, there are still 3 games remaining, so they probably won't want to risk it all for this game. So I think it's a toss up whether Deandra would play or not. If she doesn't play, I would not be surprised. But then again, the West Indies in this tournament, they have a track record of bluffing, so she's probably all right, and we'll probably see her play.
Okay, yes, because I think in the last match against India, we saw Deandra Doughton little uncomfortable with the lower back, and she was finding it little difficult when they were running between the wickets. Haley Mathers and Deandra Doughton, of course. So let us hope, fingers crossed, that Deandra Doughton is all fit and fine and is ready to take on Australia tomorrow. All right, so Dhanush, let us get you into this conversation. So Australia have been on a roll, 3 matches, 3 wins in this World Cup. Though this is not unexpected, we can say it is very much expected from a team like Australia. They have been ruthless over the years. So, how do you think is Australia going to take this game against West Indies? Do you think they'll try out some new things, or they'll just stick to the basics and continue doing what they have been doing so far?
I guess they got their playing 11 set with Ashley Gardner coming back to the side after missing out the first 2 games. Now I feel that they have their playing 11 set and they're playing in Wellington, right? So they played their last match against New Zealand right there itself, and they have a pretty good idea of how the wicket works, how the conditions are in the Basin Reserve. And I feel that there is no requirement of any changes because they may have done a couple of changes in the first 3 4 games, but now after 3 games winning all those three pretty dominantly, this playing 11 that we saw in the previous game has everything in them. They have a very good top four, and they have three excellent all-rounders in the side who can give handy amount of overs with the ball. And when it comes to bowling, they have like 7 or 8 bowling options. And if you see in the previous game, they didn't even use Alana King. She didn't even bowl a single over, but still, and Australia just rattled the New Zealand, the host, for a very low score of 128. So we know that they have their playing 11 set, and it's just that they will be making sure that they maintain the distance from the rest of the sides when it comes to the points table and stay on the top and make sure that they go into the semifinals with ease.
Yeah, that's totally true. Even when I think about Team Australia, I'm like, there is literally nothing that they can change from here on. So, Dr. Anand, as Dhanush mentioned, that they have a lot of bowling combinations when it comes to Australia bowling lineup. So, how do you feel West Indies should actually strategize themselves if they are batting first to face the pace attack of Australia?
I think that if West Indies are batting first, they will play positive, but they need to be more selective in their strokes. Continue to play positive because you don't want to put pressure on yourself with accumulating dot balls. And that is something that we need to look at as well. That if you cannot get the boundaries, you want to make sure you keep the strike being rotated. So you're picking ones, you're converting ones into twos, twos into threes, and then when once you put pressure onto the fielders, then the bad balls may come. So I think they have to be positive, but they have to be more selective in how they approach the Australian bowlers. Now, Australia has a very good combination of seam and spin. And so that is something they would have to be cognizant of, being able to manage both the seam as well as the spin that they offer. And the Australians have, in the last game, they played two leg spinners. Alana King did not bowl. I would expect that in the game tonight, well, tomorrow, she will be one of the bowlers along with Amanda Wellington. And so I think the batters have to be very positive, but at the same time, they have to play smart cricket and learn from the past games and avoid that dot ball accumulation.
I think Krisani, as Dr. Anand has spoken about West Indies batting, we all know that West Indies have some good bowlers in their lineup. I think in the last two matches, West Indies used as many as eight bowlers, and I feel that it was a good strategy. But do you think that employing eight bowlers could be like a problem of plenty for the West Indies, or do you think they should just stick to four or five bowlers? What do you think they should do against Australia tomorrow?
I when Stephanie Taylor took the gamble and she continued bowling against England and she got that wicket in her, what was it her second or third over? I thought that was a time to revert to Mohammed or probably Haley Matthews. She didn't. I think she delayed. And then for Alia Aline, I know when Cornell, I beg your pardon, I know when Selman and Matthews came into the attack against India, the run rate, um, the West Indies slowed the run rate. They took 3 wickets, and then I thought that was the perfect time to bring Aline, to revert to Aline. She's been so good as a first change bowler, but we did not see her until 34 overs. I think it's just the timing that the West Indies haven't gotten the timing as perfect as they would have want. But I don't think it's eight is too much. It's just how and when you use them. I think that's been the problem. If Deandra Dutton is there and she's able to bowl, you bowl her. You don't keep her out of the attack. If Taylor is feeling confident, she was once top all rounder in the top 10. If she feels confident enough to bowl, she bowls. I just think it's the timing that's not been good. The changes in bowling from the captain herself. Hopefully, we'll see an improvement.
Yeah, so now that we are talking about the bowling, Dhanush, I would like to ask you for Team Australia, as we know that in Team West Indies has like a good opening batting partnerships, like if they have the India Doughton and Haley Matthews on crease, what bowling combination should Australia go with in case they have to pick early wickets and not let the slaughter start on from West Indies?
So if you see the Australian bowling unit, they have like three fast bowlers in LSE Perry. Then there is Darcy Brown, who took 3 wickets in the previous game against New Zealand, and then there is one more fast bowler in the form of Megan Scrutt, who is the number three when it comes to ICC rankings for bowlers. So three world class fast bowlers are out there, and they have four spinners in Jess Jonathan, Alana King, Amanda Wellington, and and one more spinner. If I'm no, the other all
Gardner,
rounder Talia McGrath,
Gardner.
who is a fast bowler. So they have a very good combination. They have their team set when it comes to bowling. And West Indies are pretty much, if I'm not wrong, are not so good against spin. If they can bring in a spinner early up, or if they can start the bowling itself with the spinner, because they have options. Just Jonathan can start up from one end, and the other fast bowlers can start up from the other. If they bring in spin early, I feel that it will be easy for them to stop West Indies scoring those big runs. If we saw they scored 112 overs against India, so they were looking threatening for sure. But I feel that if you take 1 wicket or 2 wickets in the early stages for West Indies, they are going to fall by themselves, like how we saw New Zealand go through the same scenario. Then they were bundled out for 128, or even West Indies against India, they were 100 for no loss, and then they were all out for 162. So it was pretty much the same approach that they followed against New Zealand. If they do it, I feel that they will have the same result like how they had against New Zealand in the previous game.
Absolutely. I think Dhanush, you rightly pointed out that Australia have a quality bowling attack, as you mentioned about the three pacers that they have in Shoot, Perry, and of course Brown, and spinners in Gardner, Jess Jonathan, Amanda Jade Wellington, and of course Alana King. It will be interesting to see if they play Jess Jonathan tomorrow because she was not there in the playing 11 against New Zealand. So let us see if she plays tomorrow or not. So Dr. Anand, moving on to the West Indies batting, we all know that Australia is a potent bowling attack, and West Indies will have to fight their skin out to pose a big total in front of this dominating Australian team. And one of the players who has been incredible for West Indies over the years, of course, the captain, Stephanie Taylor, more than 5,000 ODI runs. She's the leading run getter for West Indies in the ODI format. But unfortunately, she has not been in the best of her forms in this World Cup campaign so far. So, how important will Stephanie Taylor's role be tomorrow against Australia? Of course, with the bat.
I think it's important that Stefani starts putting runs on the board for herself and also to build that confidence in the team. I think that her performance will play a big role if the West Indies bat first, or even if they have to chase, in terms of being able to put a good total on the board if they bat first, as well as if they have to chase any tight score. So I think that from her personal point of view, her performance so far doesn't go with the Taylor that we know. And I think she would want to make sure that she rises to the occasion. And from a team perspective, I think the team will feed off a positive display from Stefani in terms of the batting.
Yeah. So bring this, like, just bringing the conversation back to the bowling. Krisania, I would like to know your thoughts on what bowling combination should West Indies adopt when it comes to the top order of Australia batting. We have Lanning, we have uh, Healy, and Rachel Haynes. So to stop them from scoring big initially, so what bowling combination should West Indies go with?
I wouldn't change it. The game against India was the third in the competition. I think it's the only time you could point fingers at the opening bowlers and say, well, you did not do good today. So I would stick with it. I would still use Henry and still use Connell. I still stick with saying that Henry can move the ball away. I was just looking at her this morning, doing it against Australia in 2019. She does move the ball away from the left-handers. I think, but Connell and Henry, I think they took a bit of time in adapting to two left-handers against India. In one-day international cricket, you can't take so much time. If it's test match cricket, that's different, but you need to be on your A game as soon as possible. I'm hoping that what India did to them in the power play would bring experience, and they would not be expecting it going up against a left-hander in an Australian opener. This time they would be on point, but I won't change it. I will still go with Connell and Henry. I thought Connell, she had a bad third over, but I thought her lines and lengths were more attacking than they were against England and who was it before, and New Zealand. And Henry, unfortunately, she went for 15 in the first over. She came back in her second with just 4 runs, and then we never saw her again. That didn't do justice to the comeback that she did in her second over. I will go with the two of them again, swinging the ball away. That's what they do best. Try to be more attacking. Even though, again, what India did to them, they might revert to just going wide and sacrifice their attacking lines and lengths, sacrifice wickets in the power play, and go with, okay, we'll take 30 without loss instead of pitching it up and um, providing an opportunity for Australia to get a good start.
So, yes, so Dr. Anand Krisania just mentioned that West Indies, they have good pace bowlers in Shamilia Connell and Shinel Henry, who will, of course, take the new ball against Australia tomorrow. But do you think that the spin attack of West Indies is pretty one dimensional because they have Anisa Mohammed, Haley Matthews, and Stephanie Taylor, all off spinners, but they have somebody like Affy Fletcher, who's a leg spinner, waiting in the wings. So, do you think it could be a good idea to try out somebody like an Affy Fletcher instead of, say, Ali Allen maybe tomorrow?
You're right that the three spinners are all off spinners. I think what the selectors will be looking at is by bringing in Fletcher in terms of how the balance of the team, because Aline is there as a backup to the existing fast bowlers, the premier fast bowlers in Connell and Henry and Salmon. So it's really a question as to whether or not the selectors believe that by bringing Fletcher, it wouldn't disrupt the balance of the team, and that is something they will want to consider heading into the game against Australia. But I am more in terms of given that we have struggled against Australia scoring runs and may even want to consider showing up the batting by maybe considering also Rashada Williams to add a little depth into the batting, given the fact that you already have about seven bowlers in the team. So that is something they may want to consider as well, given the history against Australia, the series in 2019 in the West Indies. In the three ODIs, Australia batted first on two occasions and they made 308 on both occasions, and West Indies were bowled out for less than 200 in both cases. And then in the third game, when West Indies batted first, they made 181, and Australia made the runs quite easily. So in the last three games we have played Australia, we have struggled to make runs. And even the game in which we won in 2013, if I'm just using history, West Indies batted first and just made 164. So I think scoring runs against Australia is a major challenge, and the selectors may want to consider, especially if Deandra is not 100%, to maybe consider bringing in a batter and showing up the batting, given the fact that you already have seven bowlers in the team. So it's really about on the day, on the pitch, and also what the selectors are looking at.
Yeah. Um, this makes me think a lot about tomorrow's game. Danush, the I would just like to ask your thoughts on the fielding. We know that both the sides are really good when it comes to fielding. They're quite athletic. They really go all out in their ways to not let the boundaries go. So, do you see tomorrow's game as a high scoring one, or do you see somewhere around the average score of 200 to 2025?
Based on the conditions we can say that it will be surely be beyond 230 is what I can say for sure. Irrespective of who are batting, West Indies or Australia, who are batting first, they have to at least think of scoring at least 240 on that pitch. As far as fielding is concerned, I will say that both these teams are really athletic. There are some extremely good fielders in them. But to point out a few things is across all the games, we are seeing a couple of drop catches in every single match. So that thing is slightly reducing as the tournament is progressing now. And in Australia, I feel that everyone have been on their toes and have been giving their 100%. And I saw West Indies drop a few catches, especially Shinel Henry has dropped like three or four catches in this tournament till now. So I feel like there are a few stuff which West Indies might have to tighten up so that they shouldn't leave anything unturned against Australia, because Australia will come on their face the moment they get an opening. So I feel that West Indies must be on their toes. They should give their 100%, and Australia will be making sure that they play their natural game, which is attacking and aggressive and being ruthless. Because if they get that one opening, like how I said, if they get two early wickets, they can run out the whole batting order just like that. So they have the capacity of doing such impacts. So both the teams will be making sure they are playing their best on the field with the bat and ball.
Yes. And also, I think if we look at the head-to-head statistics between these two teams, we have seen that they have played 13 ODIs against each other, Australia and West Indies, and Australia have dominated with 12 wins. But yes, this statistic does not speak about West Indies' talent. And of course, we have seen in the World Cup that they have shown some class with both bat and ball in this World Cup campaign so far. All right, so Krisania, this is going to be the second match that is going to be played at the Basin Reserve in Wellington. Last time we saw Australia and New Zealand playing against each other. Australia batting first, posted 269. So, what do you think could be the par score on this wicket tomorrow?
I think we'll probably go with the same 269, especially because it is regardless of who is batting first, because it is within the reach that target of the West Indies team. So I'd go 260 for whoever goes first.
Dr. Anand, what do you think could be the par score tomorrow?
I would go with about 275, especially if West Indies bat first. I would like us to put as much runs on the board. So 275 plus to me would be a good score for West Indies to give Australia. And I think if Australia bats first as well, they would want to maximize their batting capacity. And I think they would also be looking for 275 plus if they bat first.
Right. Okay. So I think before we start taking questions from our fans, Dhanush, I wanted to ask you that before the World Cup, it was often said that probably a team needs to win 3 or 4 matches to get into that semi-final position. Australia have already won 3 matches and they have another 4 matches to go. And if we look at the Australian squad, it is a 15-member squad and they have already tried out 14 players. Of course, only Grace Harris is the player who has not been tried out by Australia still. Do you think Grace Harris could play tomorrow's match? Maybe instead of somebody like a Beth Mooney?
I don't want this Australian team to do any changes. They are like, if I can take a comparison to an IPL team, they are like a Mumbai Indians. Mumbai Indians is a side who always get their playing 11 set by the time it's our third or fourth game, and then they will continue with the same squad, making one change at best if situation demands. So the same way is what Australia is also, I feel, because this is their fourth game and they still have 3 more matches after this. They have a big game against India. They have a match against South Africa and they have one more against, if I'm not wrong, whom I'm missing, Pakistan. Not Pakistan, it's Bangladesh. So since they have Bangladesh, that match they can go out there and they can play whatever side they want. They can give their main players some rest and bring in Ghazi Brown or all the players that haven't played in the tournament. But as far as tomorrow's game is concerned, if they win this game, it's almost like they have sealed their spot in the semifinals, right? So I feel that they will be focusing towards that and they will be playing their best squad tomorrow.
All right. Okay. So maybe we can take some questions now. Right. Vinay Kumar is asking why Kaisia Knight is unable to get fluent starts despite having all the class. Krisanya, would you like to take this up?
Well, she was in pretty good form coming into the tournament. She got her highest score against South Africa when the West Indies were chasing 300, and she looked well, and we thought she was coming into it. But then right now here in the tournament, she's on a dip again, on a downward spiral. I think us all, like the West Indies, we're just hoping that both her and the captain, can figure it out as soon as possible.
All right. All right. Okay. Can we take up the next question? Adhi Venkat is asking West Indies openers have given them a good start in all the 3 matches. It's their middle order which is causing their trouble. Dr. Anand, your comments on this?
Yes, I think the problem that West Indies is having at the moment is that with the inability of Knight as well as Taylor to put runs on the board is adding to that challenge. And so I think if they were able to put runs on the board, it would complement the work that Dutting and Matthews are doing, and also to help Campbell and Nation, who is coming after. And so I think moving forward, and this game should be the game that they would really want to do it, is that you need Knight number 3 and number 4 to build on the performance of your two openers. And then that sets the stage for your lower order led by Campbell as well as Nation and the all-rounders to come. So I think that is definitely a cause for concern that number 3 and 4, who are supposed to really be among the runs, are not performing at this point in time.
I have one question from my side to the experts. Since Kaisia Knight hasn't been playing so well in the first 3 games, Dr. Anand, will you see someone like a Rashada Williams, who has been a very good player, replacing her?
Well, it is something that the selectors should consider as well. They have nothing to lose. Rashada has had a good start. She did in the Caribbean against South Africa, and then she got tapered off in South Africa. But at this point in time, it will not hurt to even consider in slotting in Rashada. And as I said earlier on, if we are looking to maybe show up the batting, maybe in bringing in Rashada into the team as well as playing Knight, or maybe replacing Knight with Rashada to see what she can provide to the team.
Okay. All right. Can we take up the next question? It's from Ankit Singh. Is England women out of the tournament? Dhanush, you want to answer this?
Uh, yeah, now if we see after the first three games for them, 3-0-3 is what they are. They have four games left. They have India day after tomorrow, and then they are having matches against New Zealand, and then they have against who are the two other teams? The Australia they play, Pakistan and Bangladesh is what, if I'm not wrong, they have. So Pakistan, Bangladesh is something that they might win, but apart from that, these two games against India and New Zealand is going to be tricky for them, and it's a do or die is what we'll say India versus for England against India. And tomorrow evening we'll be having a great discussion about that, because if England loses tomorrow day after tomorrow against India, we will see the defending champions being the first team to get eliminated. Not the first team, the second team to get eliminated from the World Cup.
So yes, Ankit, still there is hope for England if you are England fan. So just hope for the best. But yes, of course they're going to take on India, so I'm sure that you will be rooting for India in the match ahead. All right. So we have one more question now. Okay, so Wheel of Time question for you, Krisania. How do you assess the West Indies finishers? Who should pair up with Stefani in playing a grafting, strike rotating role finisher, finish the middle overs? Probably who could be the finishers, he's
Finisher.
asking.
I,
Yeah.
I think the West Indies are working with Chanel Henning. I think that is what they see her potential. That's what she will be in the future. No, she's not there yet, and it is a worry. But in the future, it should be Henry. For now, Nation has that ability, but batting at six, she comes sometimes too soon for that. If she can stay there, she definitely has the power. Who will work with Stefani Grafton? I think that's where we have Shimin Campbell. That's where she comes in. She drops the ball, she runs, she hustles between the wickets, and that's why I said she would have been important against England. And she was. That's her role. So I think if we're speaking of Grafton, then it would be Stefani and Shimin Campbell.
Right. So according to Chrisania, Shimen Campbell could be the grafter along with Stephanie Taylor, and of course Chanel Henry could play the role of a finisher. All right. Okay, so it was amazing talking to all of you, Dr. Anand, Krisania, Urvi, and Dhanush about this exciting contest that we are going to witness tomorrow between Australia and West Indies. The match will be played at Basin Reserve in Wellington, and it will start at 3:30 a.m. Indian Standard Time. So do tune in to catch all the live action on Star Sports and Disney Plus Hotstar. We'll be back again tomorrow at 8 p.m. to preview the match between India and England that will be played on 16th of March. So do join us for our conversation tomorrow at 8 p.m. and send us your questions using hashtag Female Cricket Live. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.